The good don't always win, the rule breakers do. And that's not a glitch in the system, that is the system. Let's go deeper. History keeps slapping us with the same uncomfortable lesson. The ruthless rise, the pure get played. And morality, it's often just stage makeup covering power plays. From corrupt politicians to manipulative lovers to CEOs who'd sell their grandma for a profit. There's a reason they keep winning. Friedrich Nietzsche's philosophy's favorite troublemaker didn't flinch from this. He stared straight at the ugly and said what no one else dared. Morality is a game of shadows, a psychological weapon, and the people who keep losing, they're the ones still playing fair. Nietzsche laid it out. There are two moralities. One rules from the throne, the other rules from the shadows. One is loud, unapologetic, and writes its own laws. The other hides behind virtue, guilt-tripping its enemy into submission. Both are playing the game, but only one is honest about it. Nietzsche doesn't just throw a rock at the stained glass window of traditional morality. He shattered the whole cathedral. He saw the moral world not as a battle between good and evil, but as a battle between perspectives, between classes, between power systems. He called it master morality versus slave morality, two opposing lenses through which humans define what's good and what's bad. Master morality, that's the raw, primal origin of power, birthed by the strong, the confident, the elite. These weren't villains twirling mustaches. They were the original architects of value. To them, good meant strength, pride, ambition, boldness, dominance. They didn't ask for permission. They created their own standards. They saw weakness, passivity, and guilt as threats to life, not virtues. And they didn't apologize for being on top. They owned it. Slave morality, that came later, born in the hearts of the oppressed, the powerless, those who couldn't win through strength, so they flipped the narrative. They couldn't destroy their oppressors physically, so they attacked them morally. They painted the strong as evil, the bold as arrogant, the ambitious as greedy, and in doing so, they rebranded their own powerlessness, obedience, humility, restraint as virtue. To defeat power, they redefined it, and they used morality as a weapon. This is the uncomfortable truth Nietzsche forced us to look at, that systems like Christianity and much of modern moral thinking aren't built to eliminate power. They're built to negotiate with it, to tame it, to shame it, to control it by guilt, not by strength. Morality in this frame is psychological warfare, not right versus wrong, but strategy versus strategy. And that's where things start to click, because once you see morality this way, as a tool, everything starts to make sense. You understand why ethical people keep losing to the unethical, why honest leaders fall while corrupt ones rise, why the world often feels upside down. It's not a glitch, it's not bad luck, it's how the system works. Put an ethical person up against someone who doesn't care about playing fair, that's not a fight, that's a trap. One is weighed down by conscience, reputation, and 1,000 shoulds. The other? Light on their feet, unburdened, unpredictable. You know who wins. That's why Nietzsche said the will to a system is a lack of integrity. He didn't mean chaos is king. He meant people who obsess over rules often do it because they're scared to face raw truth. They need structure to feel safe. But safety doesn't win wars. Freedom does. And freedom belongs to those who aren't afraid of their darker instincts, to those who accept that manipulation, seduction, deception aren't necessarily evil. They're just tools. And tools, when used well, become power. Now zoom out. In business, ethical companies follow the rules, avoid exploitation, play nice. Ruthless companies, they write new rules, cut corners, dominate markets. In politics, honest leaders speak the truth, even when it costs them votes. Corrupt leaders, they build empires on lies, spin narratives, and get reelected. In relationships, moral people love with sincerity. They communicate, compromise, empathize. Manipulators, they engineer desire, they shape perception, they play to win. And here's the twist. The more moral you are, the more predictable you become. You can be read like a book. The rule breaker, they're a plot twist, a curveball. And in a world of psychological chess, unpredictability is power. Nietzsche knew that. He saw that morality doesn't just bind our actions, it binds our psyche. It creates what he called the bad conscience, the part of us that turns inward beating ourselves up for having desires that don't fit the moral mold. But what happens when someone refuses to feel bad for wanting more? When they don't apologize for ambition, when they stop trying to be good and start trying to be whole? They become dangerous, not because they're evil, but because they're free. They're not paralyzed by guilt. They're not stuck in a loop of overthinking. They act, they adapt, they move, they win. They don't suppress the will to power, they embody it. And Nietzsche respected that. To him, that wasn't corruption, that was honesty. Because what's worse, to act like a saint while secretly resenting the wicked who thrive, or to stop pretending and step into your own unapologetic power? In the end, Nietzsche's message wasn't a call to become a villain, it was a challenge. Stop hiding behind morality, stop using ethics as a shield, and start becoming who you truly are. You don't need a rule book, you don't need permission, you don't even need to be understood. You become the rule.